Hi, it's me again, Roman Ring, and now I'll be teaching you section 11.6, which is titled How Will You Assess Student Learning and Develop High Quality Assessments? Ooh, fun, fun topic. And this is from pages 395 to page 408 for those following in the textbook. Pretty big chapter. Um, so to start off, an overview of this chapter is basically, you know, a lot of different kind of assessments and different types depending on what exactly you're trying to assess and how exactly a teacher would want to assess it. And then of course we have at the very end like strategies to develop high quality assessments that will be beneficial to both the teacher and the student. So to begin, we're going to start with formal versus informal assessments. So, formal assessments are, developed prior to having the students complete them. So, these would include exams, tests, quizzes, in class seat work and homework, critiques of performances, like tryouts for a school play and an athletic team. So, those are the formal assessments, the stuff that is made before the students are actually there. So, when it's exam day, that is a formal assessment. The teacher has made that way before they had the students because they know how their class is going to go. Now, the informal assessments are, of course, the opposite. They just occur during the teaching process. They're spontaneous. So, and these aren't really like super high assessments like, writing. This is more stuff like, the teacher is staring at the students, trying to read their faces to see if they are comprehending what they are learning, and listening to how the students explain the material to see if they have actually learned it well or don't, or if they're missing something, and asking questions to find the student's level of understanding. And then this one is like, these are made quite frequently. I mean, the teachers always ask questions and they always pay attention to how their students behave and look during classes. So informal assessments are very frequent. They've also are less obvious to like a classroom observer because the observer just will not know if when the teacher actually does it. Now moving on, we have a quantitative versus qualitative assessments. Now quantitative assessments, the quantitative approach makes use of measurement and evaluation techniques like multiple choice questions, true or false, mathing questions, or like essay items. So quantitative assessments yield numerical scores that the teachers will use to evaluate learning, as well as, of course, the effectiveness of their teaching. Now, qualitative assessments, on the other hand, include the formal and informal observations that the teacher makes on a student's performance. So, like a teacher assessing the student's work habits, that's a qualitative assessment. Seeing if, the students have effective thinking and learning, if they're like critically thinking of their own work, if they're working hard or hardly working, how do they manage their time. And these are qualitative assessments are more subjective than quantitative, but quantitative can be subjective because teachers like must interpret the meaning of the scores, of course. So Next one is how like you assess the students, like measurement and evaluation. The measurement is defined as the gathering of quantitative data related to the knowledge and skills students have acquired. So the measurement is the scores, the rankings, and ratings that teachers can use to figure out the degree in which students have actually gotten the standards, have learned the standards that they're supposed to learn. Evaluation is critical. Evaluation involves making judgments about or assigning a value to measurements the teacher makes of student learning, as the book will say. And evaluation is important, considering without evaluation, the teacher will not know how the students are doing without talking to them, and it could really lead to problems down the road for the teacher and the students. Now, this leads into the topic of formative and summative evaluation. I hope I'm saying the second one right. Formative evaluations is when the teachers measure students' attainment of knowledge and skills for the purpose of making the decision of their teaching skills and how they are doing as a teacher. And they use the results of these evaluations about, to figure out what activities to do, what ones are effective and helpful, and which ones are just not really good at all. And now we have summative evaluations, which are, when the teachers will use the measurements they've collected to determine the grades at the end of the unit, a semester, the year, to see if the students are ready to move on with their education or if they need to, work on some stuff a bit. And these provide an overview of student learning in a broad range of knowledge and skills, while formative are usually more focused on and cover the narrower range of knowledge and skills. But teachers will also use summative evaluations to make changes into their teaching, just like they would use formative. Now, next we're going to talk about emerging trends in classroom assessment. And of course, just like everything, just like a lot of things, classroom assessment has trends. Because a big trend is the fact that there is just an ever increasing number of tests for pretty much a lot of stuff. And there's also new forms of assessments being made. Now, and teachers are also using what is called alternative assessments, which is assessments that directly measure student performance through real-life tasks, as they put it. And this is basically assessments that will see, can the students apply what they know instead of just, spitting back out facts that they have memorized. Can they actually apply what they've learned? So that's an alternative assessment. So now we're going to go through a huge list of different kinds of assessments, starting with authentic assessment. And these authentic assessments require students to use higher level thinking skills to, perform, create, or solve real life problems, and not just like choose 1 out of 4 options on like a multiple choice test. This requires them to use their skills to solve the problems instead of just going, oh, the answer's B, or oh, I don't know, I guess I'll circle D for this one. And a teacher might use these to, evaluate the quality of individual and small group projects, and you know, to see the participation in like the activities that they do. Uh, and these require students to solve problems or to work on tasks that approximate, you know, try to approximate what they will encounter out of the classroom, because that's what students love to know. What in the real world is going to need me to learn this specific topic? Students love to ask that question all the time, especially in a math class. I'm sure we all have that one person. And but authentic assessments, might allow students to select projects which they'll be evaluated. Like, if they write a brochure, make a map, create a recipe, like make a script for a play, produce a video, writing a children's book, like anything that allows the student to select the way that they're going to be assessed and what they're going to be assessed on is authentic is an authentic assignment, and allows student creativity to really show. The next kind of assessment is a portfolio assessment, and this is exactly what it sounds like. And this is an assessment based on a collection of student works. So a portfolio, kind of like how going if you're going to be like an art major in college, you're going to have like an art portfolio to see, so they can see your works and be like, oh, okay, pretty good. Um, it it basically just sums up and provides examples of the work that the student's done, and it will represent the best work. Uh, and portfolio assessment is important because it clarifies the criteria used on select work, and it organizes a percent of the work for the teacher to assess. And of and just when you thought there couldn't be a lot, there's 3 types of portfolios. And there's a lot. A working portfolio, which is basically just representing works in progress. And this is just where a depository for like the students' works that are being like selected and polished for a more like permanent like assessment. Then we have, and so it starts as a working portfolio, then moves into a display and show portfolio, which is when the student will learn to critically judge the works and focus on qualities that will make their work stand out against other works in there. And then the final one is an assessment portfolio, which is the final step, and that is when the portfolio is in its final stage. All the works are done, the student selected the best ones they have, and that will be what the teachers will look at. Moving on, we have peer assessment, and this is once again very straightforward, and sounds exactly as it is when students will assess their peers' work. So this is like, in an English class when you're writing an essay, and the teacher will be like, alrighty, trade your essays, read and make corrections, point out errors and where they can improve. These videos themselves are peer assessments because we gain feedback from each other so that we can, be able to improve. And this is because, and schools do this because students sometimes will have an easier time accepting the feedback from a fellow student than they will from the teacher. And it also is helpful because the teacher might not use the same words that another student will use. The teacher might, give feedback, but the student will be confused because they have no clue what the teacher means. A fellow peer will be able to word it in a manner that will allow the student to understand, okay, what exactly is wrong with with whatever it is that the peers are assessing, so that they can fix it and make it better. Uh, Next, we have self-assessment. This is, of course, another very big self-explanatory assessment. It is when the student assesses themselves. So self-evaluations and just revision processes for a lot of stuff. And these are really good because it helps the student understand their own work, and it allows them to be critical, to develop the skills to be critical of their own work, so that they can notice when, okay, that is not what I wanted, that is not the best way I could have worded it, that's not the best work I've ever done. And it will help them really, like ask questions like, what have I learned because of this activity, what problems that I encounter, and it really gets them thinking about their experience with it. Next, we have performance-based assessments, and these are just assessments based on observation and judgment. Basically, we judge the performance of the student, and the teacher judges the quality of the students, like thinking, their quality of argument and writing, depending on what exactly it is, of course, that is being assessed. Is it like an essay, a project? And that will depend on what exactly is being assessed in the performance-based assessment. So, of course, if it's writing, it's going to be, okay, what's the quality of writing? If it's like an argumentative essay, what's the quality of the argument? A project, like a science project, what is the quality of the thinking behind that? In these focus on the student's ability to apply knowledge, skills, and of course work habits through the performance of these tasks. And they should find that these like performance tasks are interesting and relevant to the knowledge, skills, and work habits that are emphasized in the curriculum, because once again, students will get more engaged if they really know that the content is interesting and it applies to them, and that they can use it outside in the real world and not just in the classroom. And lastly, we're going to end it with project-based learning, or PBL, which will, and this is a slow thing, but project-based learning allows students to work in teams to explore the real-world problems, and so this changes it from them just reading out of the textbook and learning what's in the textbook says, to really like learning and engaging with them, so they have a better learning experience and actually, once again, absorb the knowledge that is being taught to them. Now we're going to get into how to develop high quality classroom assessments. This is extremely important, especially for teachers, of course. And so it is recommended to use many criteria to grade and assess the assignments the students make and the tests they take. That way you can get a bigger like what is the word? A bigger pool of information. And some of the criteria should be like, the effort in which they did it, like the neatness in which they did it for some things, like, writing and projects, the correctness of it. So, test how did they get the correct answer or not, and then how well did the students do with like compared to other students and compared to like past times the students have taken like a test or assessment. Like, is the student improving, or are they falling behind with the rest of the class? uh, so the book says that, to assess student learning, you need to be skilled in choosing or developing assessment methods appropriate for attaining instructional goals and objectives, skilled at actually handing out and scoring and interpreting the test results, using these assessment results to change and develop your way of teaching so that the students can get more out of it, uh, developing valid grading procedures, uh, communicating the assessment results to, of course, the students, parents, and anyone that might need it, and of course, other teachers, and recognizing unethical, illegal, and inappropriate assessment methods and uses of assessment information. Um, and this talks into, and this leads into a conversation of validity and reliability, um, with student assessments, because it's classroom assessments are either like made by teachers or commercially prepared, by like other like companies, so these teachers can take in. It's a question of, are they valid and are they reliable? Uh, because assessments are directly related to the teaching effectiveness, so they have to be valid and reliable. So validity refers to the extent in which these assessments measure what they're supposed to measure. So if you have someone write an essay and it's to measure how well they can form an argument, if your assessment method has nothing to do with that, then it's not a really valid assessment method, and it does not do its job, and they're also going to be useless, because if the assessment doesn't assess what it's supposed to, what's the point of it then? And but if the assessment is valid, it will ensure that the students, what they're asked to do is a direct reflection of the standards, the goals, and the expectations or targeted learning outcomes of the class and the subject. Uh, Reliability refers to the degree in which an assessment provides results that are consistent. So, like a test is considered to be reliable if it, yields the similar results at like different points of time or under different like conditions, and this leads into scoring rubrics, because rubrics are an important element of assessment, because it's going to be how are they scored, like what is the rating of the assignment, the test, the essay, the project, whatever it is. What is it rated, and it's and these rubrics are normally pre-established performance criteria the teacher made of like should what should be um, like assessed during the project. And in addition to developing rubrics, the teacher should be able to collect models of performances and products by the students, because of course it always helps students to see like past models of like like essays written really well or essays not written well, of like the best project versus like the worst projects. The students have an idea of like what they should do so that they can get a good grade on their assessment. And finally, we're going to end with the fact that there is no single like correct and way to assess student learning, because students will have multiple opportunities to demonstrate what they know, because it is important for the teachers to provide that. And as the students know, they have different ways to demonstrate their success. You know, they will have more positive views of themselves, and that will help boost their mood, boost their behavior in classroom, and boost their performance in the class. That's all for this subject. I hope you learned a lot, because I certainly learned a lot. Because there's a lot of assessments. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and see you or not.